The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I was getting ready to say one motion. What is that about?
Every once in a while, you think you're gonna forget the words.
Oh my gosh, that is one motion.
And in school, how many times have you said that?
Yeah, my microphone is on. Okay, roll call, please.
Carlson. Here. Hurtek. Here. Clendenin.
Here.
Maniscalco.
Here.
Vieira. Miranda.
Here.
Henderson.
Present.
We have a physical quorum.
Thank you. Adoption of the minutes from last month.
Second.
Okay, by Clendenin, second by Maniscalco. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, now, Mr. McCray, let's come forward and set our agenda for today. Good morning.
Good morning. Cedric McCray, Interim Director, Tampa CRAs. So the agenda, and I'm not aware of anything being pulled for discussion, would go as printed.
There's some items to be, there's one thing to be continued, June, quite a few, June 8th. 6, 7, and 8, yes. Can I have a motion for that? Second by Clendenin. All those in favor for 6, 7, and 8 to be continued? Okay. And then anything else?
Nope.
What about here, up on council, anything you want to pull for discussion? Okay. All right, motion to adopt the minutes as, the agenda. You always get me on that, Hertake. I got it, I'm almost perfect on it today.
There's no such thing as almost.
Almost, yes it is.
It's just being human.
Okay, the motion was by, thank you, second by this guy here, Clendenin.
The handsome one.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, okay. Now we're going to move to public comment, and we have Mr. Randolph online. Yeah.
And this morning I woke with a heavy heart. We find ourselves in a pivot moment, one where we face challenges and uncertainty. Many of us are feeling stress, fear, and frustration, and even anger. It is true that recent events have shaken our confidence in the progress we've made towards diversity, equity, and inclusion. But let us remember our history. Remember the spread of Black Wall Street, a symbol of economic prosperity and self-sufficiency that serves as a powerful reminder of what we can do when we work together. With over 1.5 trillion in spending power every year, the Black community holds an immense economic potential. Now more than ever, it's the time to harness that power to create our own DEI. We must come together not as individuals, but as a unified community. For we are our brothers and sister keepers. The village mentality must be returned, but we are stronger when we work together. History has shown us that when we focus on innovation, we can achieve greatness. The opportunity today is unlike any in recent history. Technology and artificial intelligence create an opportunity for everyone, from the high school dropout to the college graduate, to advance without inclusion. It is time to move from a consumer mindset to one of investment, making money work for us instead of us working for money, creating a generational wealth. I see conflict and division among us. But what if we could set aside our differences and unite by coming together? We can turn lemons into lemonade, seize the power of our future, and create a legacy of prosperity and empowerment. In the words of the great James Brown, say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Vieira is on his way, stuck in traffic, so he'll be here shortly. So we will continue with public comment. And there's no particular order. You may come forward, line up on the side. Yeah. Is there some technical issues for us? Or everything's okay? I just want to make sure.
No, we can't see anything. Yeah, they have it focused on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not broadcasting.
Yeah, I know. That's why I asked. Give us just a second, make sure we get all this on record. It's, okay.
But we can't see. The television is showing the Elmo.
The large screen television is not showing, it's just a white blank screen.
Yeah, we're not seeing on our end.
He said what? Okay. Okay, no problem.
Looking mighty dapper down there, Mr. Miranda.
That's on play call.
We could have a sing-along.
No, Mr. Clendenin.
Karaoke time at city council. It's a small world. It's a small world. Ping pong club.
There we go. Thank you. Okay, good morning, Miss Mimi. State your name for the record, please.
Good morning, Mimi Martinez, resident of Ybor Heights and member of the East Tampa CAC. I'm here today to talk about the concerns I have for the potential of the CRAs being shut down. As we know, the state of Florida is once again trying to shut down the CRAs. I think the biggest lesson for us to learn from that is now more than ever, we need to be more efficient in prioritizing what projects we're going to support, and for the CACs especially to unite to strategically plan and organize what projects that we are going to fund. We need to focus on affordable housing, we know that, and economic development through supporting businesses that are going to be able to create jobs for us. It is important that we also make sure that we invest in those businesses that we know have already established a good reputation in the community, that we know that they're going to deliver on what they say they're going to do for the community. And it is important that we continue to acquire land as much as possible so that we can go ahead and get that affordable housing. We potentially have 9 years left. That's it. That's not a long time. So now more than ever, we need the CRA board to help the CACs to make sure that we push along those projects that are a priority, which is the affordable housing. Once we put housing up, that'll stay there forever. Once we invest in businesses that are continue to bring in more businesses into the area, those are long-term investments worth working on. So I advocate that you please support that. And this leads me to the Sanchez and Haya building. I'm a strong supporter of that. We know that they're established in the community. We know that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. So I advocate that you approve money to fund them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Good morning.
Morning.
I, Uhuru. Uhuru means freedom in Swahili, and the name is Mentesnot, Tampa, Florida. I would like to say, as I've said repeatedly, this is a do-nothing city council, and what happens with that is all the city councils prior to it is the same thing. It's nothing different. The city is actually an automatic. The city is an automatic. Most cities are an automatic. The world is an automatic, period. But what is happening is you do see progress, you do see advancement, but that's advancement based on the people, the collective will of the people. What I like to do is talk about child support. How do you go from talking about reparations, black power, self-determination, freedom and independence for African people to talk about child support? Because child support is a big eugenics program. It's an ethnic cleansing program that's being ran right through all the circuit courts, all the state courts, and private organizations. Child support is ruining many African families, but that's not significant to white people. That's not significant to North Americans. But I want to say this also. Any person, any man, I can't speak for women because I don't have a vagina, any man who allows the government to go in their check when they work and do a garnishment or deduction is a coward, plain and simple. Any man that allows the government to go in their check when they work, after they work, that allows the government to go in their check and do a garnishment, that man is less than a man. That man is a coward, a punk, a sissy, nothing more, nothing less. Plain and simple. Child support is illegal and unconstitutional. This city council needs to do something about it. I've stated this city council need to call the chief judge, ask him what's going on with those hearing officers over there. Specifically, hearing officer Sabrina Fry, a Daughters of a Confederacy witch. Pull her record and see what's going on with that. They're ruining black families. Child support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next public speaker, please. Good morning.
Good morning. I am Jeff Jankowitz, speaking for many concerned. My city councilwoman is educator Gwen Henderson, of the Tampa
Address
District.
your comments to the board, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
I am
What's
a
your last
resident
name?
and a homeowner in the Channel District. These issues, the issues we're experiencing are missing, non-existing, and non-maintained landscaping and irrigation systems and issues other than on all the streets except for Meridian and Channel Side Drive. This has been occurring for an extended period of time, years. This is the responsibility of the city, except where developers or owners have an agreement where with the city otherwise, and that does occur. Numerous efforts to resolve this through the Park and Recs Department, through the Channel Side District Community Advisory Committee have not led to a solution. One issue is that the agreement between some property owners and the city cannot be located, and therefore the city's area of responsibility can't be specified and is not clear. I've been told, along with others who go to the CAC meeting, that the CAC would be willing to fund this and get it resolved, but we are finding that, and also expedite this, but there's some issues in achieving that through the protocol of the city or whatever. And we'd like to expedite that, have it expedited if possible, because it's been around so long. It's really important that the city of Tampa produce an inviting environment, especially for all our tourists and cruise passengers down in the Channel District as well as its residents. All we ask is that the city support this matter and the city council look into it and see if we can get it resolved, and that's what we're asking. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Allison Hewitt, East Tampa resident and business owner. I'm coming to talk to you about a couple of things on the agenda. We are requesting purchasing property to help expand the Gator building. I'm very happy and thank you for working on that. My concern there is that I'm hoping that we do at least a market analysis or a feasibility analysis so we're not building something that can't be maintained, that we don't end up with another vacant building. I want to make sure we do smart development, and as we are doing the RFP, we have put in there that there's some market analysis, understand what you're proposing to go there, can stay there, and be substantiated with the financial viability of the community. The next issue I'd like to talk about is the Hotel Haya. I have no problem with the project. I think the project is excellent. My concern is about process, in that in your packet on the purchasing of the property, you will see the CAC recommendations. But when you get to a $5 million request, you will not see what the CAC said, and they had some very articulate conversations and debate about how to prioritize projects in the community. And according to Florida Statute 163, the purpose of the CAC is to provide you with recommendations based on their input from the community. And I just think that it causes a lack of trust when the community puts in time, sits on the CAC, and has a debate on how to spend the $5 million, and then it is not reflected in the notes that were, at least the notes that were put online that we were able to review. So if we're going to make sure that we are empowering our community and our CACs to go out into the community and talk and bring their opinions back, then at least put their CAC comments in the recommendations that come before you as you're making the decisions. Because again, as this Florida legislature move forward, if it passes in its current form, we will not be able to encumber any money after October 1 of this year. And so if that passes, we need to make sure that we are in lockstep working with the CACs to put as many projects as we can under contract before October 1, and we're not able to do any more projects, especially in East Tampa, who is behind in development. We're going to have to really put boots to the ground to make sure that something of substance is happening in the East Tampa CRA. Thank you.
Ms. Hewitt, just for the record, you said Hotel Haya. I just want to make sure, is that the project that you're talking about, Hotel
Sorry.
Haya? I
Sorry.
know, but I just want her to say it for the record.
I apologize. It's item number 13 on the agenda, the Sanchez E. Haya
Okay,
building.
thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to correct that.
Absolutely. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Council. My name is Ivan Rivera. I want to thank you all for your time today as you serve as the CRA board. Today I want to talk about line item 13, the Sanchez and Haya project. And actually, it's funny because we're going to touch on a little bit about what that CAC recommendation looks like. When the CAC got together, they looked to approve a 2-year, $250,000 subsidy for the project. Now, I sat in the meeting. These meetings are recorded, the CAC meetings, so you can go back and listen to them. One of the things that I saw several CAC members talk about is whether this project is even justified because it is Ybor City and not East Tampa. And when you have several CAC members that have that perspective of the historic fabric of this project being Ybor City and not East Tampa, you start to come across a dialogue that really stops certain projects, right? Because with that perspective, North Ybor residents or VM Ybor residents or Ybor Heights residents shouldn't get the tree trimming grant or shouldn't get the home renovation grants, right? And that's not fair, we know that. So now, I have served as presidents of civic associations, vice presidents, secretaries. I've been involved for many, many years. And throughout those years, the Newman family and this specific project have been instrumental in community involvement and development. Alan, when you handed me your business card.
Sir, do not state our names for the record.
apologize.
Speak to the board.
When several board members have approached me for their role to be selected on city council, it is at the Newman factory that you guys showed up at. During COVID, when everything shut down and the community had no place to meet, the Newman factory had a facility large enough for all of us to social distance and continue to keep that community spirit involved. This family has done a lot for the community. Our local residents in particularly need these jobs, need to be able to walk to these jobs. I know many seniors that don't have cars, that are living on Social Security. And so what I want to ask for you today is when this line item comes up, that you please do your due diligence. Take into account the CAC recommendation, because there are excellent leaders on the CAC. I know them personally. But there are also a portion of the CAC that have fought this and discriminatory ways, to be frank. So I ask for you to do your due diligence, and please take your time on that line item today. It's really important for our community that we see this project, and it will. The Newman family is going to push this through, but as much that we can do as a city and as a community to support them is important now more than ever. So I thank you all for your time, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Council. I'm Julia Gorska-Freeman, resident of Riverside Heights, and I'm also here this morning speaking on behalf of the Preservation Roundtable, which is dedicated to celebrating and protecting the architectural heritage of our community. We believe that Tampa's rich history can best be enjoyed in the buildings, both grand and modest, which grace our city, and that the CRA has the power to invest in the restoration of the Sanchez y Haya building, giving it new life to enrich the vitality and economic well-being of the Vian neighborhood. This historic structure has been sadly neglected for decades. The transformation of this abandoned building will change an eyesore into a place of healthy activity in an area which needs new enterprise. As you know, the purpose of the CRA is to address blight and invest in physical improvements that will benefit the CRA area. And the financial commitment to this restoration will be more than repaid in both job creation and dramatic improvement to the surrounding area. Please support this request by the Newman family, who've contributed significantly to the East Tampa CRA since it was established in 2004. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Connie Burton.
Good morning.
As we recognize the 60th anniversary on what the historians describe as Bloody Sunday, the Selman's March, the March for Equality, Justice, Voting Rights, African people still find themselves in the throes of that same vicious cycle. In fact, Dr. King says that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And I really wish Dr. King would have went on and lived and been more concerned about his own personal life when we talk about the moral consciousness of this country. Because I indeed believe it has been broken. Item number 15, I'm kind of amazed as to how various CRAs can enter into some type of intergovernmental agreement, city agreement, and they can find themselves working together. But East Tampa has been required to do the heavy lift all by itself. Take on projects like helping to build a police substation, having to then develop its own clean team, as if it's a city into itself. And so the real intent of the CRA that was written as far back as 2004, we haven't even been able to touch the real intent, and that was the rehab of houses and to make sure things was affordable for the residents that lived in that community. So if the fright now is that the government and DeSantis might shut it down, then what would the residents in East Tampa that haven't gotten a darn thing be afraid of? Item number 13. How then, in lieu of all the things that the residents and the East Tampa CRA need to do, then house guests come in and say, we want the biggest piece of pie right now. We need $5 million for what we want. And the community has not gotten what it needs. The CRA had a robust discussion, and they felt that in the best interest of the body, that they be given a $250,000 for the next 2 years. And if the project was deemed amenable after that, they can come back. But what's going to be interesting this morning is to see how well you respect the body of the CRA and the CAC. There is volunteers that comes every month to bring the issues forth that the community want, and are you going to listen to the ways in which the community has expressed themselves around this project?
Thank you, Ms. Burton. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Valerie Bullock from Ponce de Leon and College Hill. Number 4, about the CRA and the homeowners. I had a good idea about how we can spend the money that's just been sitting there. If I've been in East Tampa for over 20 years, I have equity into the community. So when y'all give me the $50,000 to fix my house, I shouldn't have to get a 7-year lien on my house. Maybe my lien can be 1 year because I have equity in the community. And I think that's how it should be looked at. Give the people who need the money in East Tampa to fix their house up, but don't put a 7-year lien on it or try to go up over that. Base it on how long the people have been staying there. Because if you can help the people and they can build up their house, you uplift their life. And that's what I thought the CRA was about, uplifting people economically that were disadvantaged for whatever reason it is. And to number 13, the old chip-in bar, why do East Tampa CRA have to fund that? Why can't they do an interlocal agreement like they're doing with the Gas Works and Ybor City? Why do East Tampa CRA always have to be used like a slush fund? And one way how the people come to us and say, hey, they'll send 2 black faces, like we stupid, and that's an insult to me. And then they'll say it's gonna help the community economically. How? Show me the numbers. I know when they were building Tampa Waterworks, this paper here say the economic impact equals 520 million. Now when we give our money, what kind of return are we gonna get back on that? It's unknown. Everybody say economically, yeah, you can hire 10 people from the neighborhood. That money would be better spent on bringing a manufacturing plant to East Tampa so that we can have our own economic engine creating jobs for the people. And we are so sick and tired of people acting like our IQ is -50. Don't tell us what y'all want to do. Ask us what we want. We are the one who held the neighborhood down when people were scared to drive down late. But now, since we got newcomers in there, the old people in the neighborhood are being overlooked and disrespected.
Good morning. Keela McCaskill, lifelong resident here in Tampa, advocating in East Tampa. 2004, CRAs were given their marching orders through the Bible that governs what happens in their area. Channelside winning off a 2004 RFP or CRP. East Tampa, not so much. Nevertheless, I came before you all of 2022, begging you almost to grant a pre-development grant to help landowners. According to the CRP, they specifically said go to the existing landowners and provide them opportunity to eliminate some of this blight. August 18, 2022, this body approved that said grant, and it didn't get released officially until now, 2024, when our it released 2024, acted 2025, and now our CRA is under fire. Possible, it may not even exist. And yet we don't have very many opportunities presented before you to make something happen. So moving forward, it's going to take some collaborative efforts. It's going to take you listening to the people in the community. It's going to take you to get very creative, similar to what you're going to do in probably, I think it's line item 15, very creative on how you get this money spent going forward before the October 2025 deadline, which will be challenging because the staff is inexperienced, many of them new to the staff. A lot of what we're facing is challenges, but I'm asking you to get creative. Get out of the box on what we've been doing, because we cannot afford to lose that kind of money in an area that's been underserved, overlooked, ignored, downright violated the CRP, because none of what was recommended happened. So I understand it's going to take a lot of collaborative efforts. I'm going to save some of the passion and frustration that I have in that, ignoring that group, and I realize it's going to take that. So moving forward, I know we have new people on board, and I want to I have a thank you card for Abby Feely, because over the time I realized she's new to the role. I'm trying to get her to operate in the old role and the new role, and moving forward, she took a lot of time working with
us understanding the transition and what will happen. So I want to thank her for her time, because I read or saw one day where it was almost as if she doesn't do work. But what she has been doing is trying to work with the community, work with you all, work with other people. And I want to thank her for her time. I also want to thank this chair. I've said that we don't see our representation from East Tampa, but not 2 weeks ago, this chair sent representation from her office and supported housing education. So I do see there is some efforts to work collaboratively here in the community, and we're going to need that. Again, I'm going to ask you all to get out of the box. Be very creative on what comes next as it relates to development in East Tampa. We have some significant projects, and I know you know that they're coming. Hopefully you pay attention to what's happening in this area, and we get smart about the development to come, because it was ignored and overlooked. And the proof is, look at both CRPs, both written May 2004. One is winning, the other one is nearly the same. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. If there's anyone else, please come stand to the side now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Frank Williams, pastor of Paradise Missionary Baptist Church. You know, it's so sad for us to have to come up here and argue with y'all week after week and never get nothing done. You know, I want to talk about those, what y'all call retention ponds. Y'all need to fill those things in and give them to the black folk, because that's where our mother and father raised us up in East Tampa. You got all them different ponds out there, what y'all call retention. And when I ask you all, what is retention pond, none of you could tell me nothing. And you still ain't gonna tell me nothing. Because the idea, what's going on, we wanna keep it separated. White from black and Mexican. They treat us like we less than a dog. But you got to understand, we created by the same God y'all was created by. And whether you white or black, it don't make no difference. We need to be treated like people, just like y'all being treated. Y'all gave yourself a raise the other month, 50%. Why don't you do something for us? Help us out. We need help in a mighty way. But nobody seemed to care. Nobody seemed to give a damn. I had a lady come from out of here. I don't want to call her by her name because I'm filing a complaint again. She came out to my house there, bought 3 thieves over there. They were stealing everything they could, electronic out of my house. And she was going into my bank account. And how I know she was going into my bank account, she called my daughter and told her. But now I got my son working for me, and he helping me out a lot. But that's why I told Ms. Henderson last week I need to speak to her, but she didn't want to speak to me, so I didn't care less. But I'm gonna get it out and tell everybody exactly what type of people y'all sent to represent y'all, and it's not right. They represent y'all, and they're thieves, liars, crackheads, and all them kind of people. But you got to understand, if y'all gonna send somebody down to represent you, you ought to send somebody decent and got good sense and know how to speak to people. Don't just handle people because you look at, oh, well, I ain't gonna treat them good. But you know what?
Thank you, Pastor Williams. Your time is up. We appreciate your comments. Next
speaker,
please.
I get all my help.
Next speaker, please. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
I get all my help not from here, but a lady come way from California. They help me out.
Thank you.
And that's sad. People here don't want to do nothing for black folks.
Okay. Ms. Johnson, please see if there's anything else we can do for Pastor Williams. Next speaker and final speaker for today.
Say that what? I didn't hear what you say. You don't want to talk to me.
Yeah, it's okay.
She said thank you, Pastor.
I said thank you.
She said thank you, see what we can do for you.
Okay. Let me get out of here.
Yeah.
Good morning, Board. Marcus Davis. I work with Blue Sky Communities. We're an affordable housing developer located in St. Petersburg, Florida. We just want to thank you guys, let you give a couple of updates about the Adderley. We had a groundbreaking we had a ribbon cutting in November, and we're just about all leased up and very active in the community, trying to hopefully do another phase of 100 units for dedicated to the elderly. We welcome you guys to come out to site. We're happy to give any tours to any of the board or any of the staff, and we just want to thank you all for your support.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Okay, that's the final speaker. We will move on to our staff reports. Mr. McCray, I'm sorry, who's going to introduce our CAC Central Park?
Good morning,
Good
Courtney
morning, Ms.
Orr,
Orr.
Urban Core Development Manager. I'm proud to introduce Thomas Murphy, who has been a longtime advocate for the enhancements of Central Park, and he is the current CAC Chair.
Thank you.
So, Thomas.
Thomas Murphy, Central Park CAC Chair. Good morning, CRA Board.
Good morning.
I'm here to update you on some of the ongoings in the Central Park boundaries. So since the inception of our CAC, most of the area comprised of vacant land, which was primarily the former Central Park housing projects. Now we have popular businesses with several openings to look forward to. Some of the new businesses coming are a medical office building, a boutique grocer, which has been a long time standing, considering that was a food desert for a long time, affordable housing, a hotel, and additional retail space. Slated to open in 2026 is the Tampa Black History Museum, which is going to be in the former St. James Church. That was actually the only building left standing after the Central Park projects were demolished. And I know that the Housing Authority spent a lot of money getting that building up to par, so that's going to be very exciting. The museum's going to offer a Black History book club, entertainment, educational programming, and Black History walking tours. Some of the existing businesses, I went down and took some pictures for y'all. So some of the, is that the right way for you? Okay, is Meacham Farm. So I'm not sure if you guys have gone down to Meacham Farm, but they are expanding very quickly. Meacham Farm is sourcing from several small businesses in the area, making their products easily accessible to Tampa's residents. Their farm fields are producing hundreds of pounds of produce every month. They host educational field trips regularly throughout the school year, where they teach students about where their food comes from. They also have a SNAP and EBT 50% off program through Fresh Access Bucks, Feeding Florida, that gives SNAP recipients several $100s of free Florida produce every month. Their bees are producing a lot of honey that they sell, and Beekeeper Paul hosts bee tending workshops regularly, where you can gear up and open the hives. They also have their new chicks down here down in the farm. Some additional businesses within our CRA boundaries that I'd like to mention are the Ybor Yoga Studio, Dojo Bread Company, Robert Saunders Library, and Urban Lux at Tampa Park, which was formerly known as the Tampa Park Plaza. So Jodo Bread Company is a locally owned baker and offers fresh artesian breads, pastries, grab-and-go sandwiches, and coffee. The Robert Saunders Library is one of only 2 African-American research libraries in the state, so we're very fortunate to have that, not only within our city, but within our neighborhood as well. Fur Kids, no kids for me, just pets, so Fur Kids is a good one. It's a locally owned pet daycare, kennel-free boarding, and daytime play and train center that just recently opened on Nebraska within our boundaries as well. Tampa Park Plaza has been renamed as Urban Lux at Tampa Park and offers a variety of businesses, including True Vegan Creamery. They're locally owned and offer dairy-free frozen desserts on the go. Another is Ursula's History Shop, which features a variety of historic memorabilia, as well as a wonderful bookstore. So there's still a lot of opportunities in the vacant commercial space. This is an example of a building that has been vacant for a long time that they're giving a facelift to. A lot of them are going to be within the Encore section. So Ella at Encore has approximately 3,000 square feet of retail space available for build-out. The future tenant can design their space to fit their needs. Trio has also approximately 3,000 square feet of retail space available for build-out. It's across from Perry Harvey Park and has an outdoor seating area, which would be great for a restaurant. Tempo at Encore, this is the one that we're really trying to get, has about 5,000 square feet of retail space. It has within it a 3,000 square foot performance space designated for a performing arts theater. Within that theater space is a mezzanine, and THA is requesting that the adjacent space be a restaurant. And then lastly, I'll show the new development that is on Nucio Parkway, across from where the Tampa Park apartments were, and this is an example of the new space available as well. So are there any questions that you have regarding Central Park or the boundaries or anything going on?
Any comments from Board Member Hurtak, Board Member Clendenin?
Thank you. This was a nice update. It's nice to see the focus on businesses. What exactly are you all, do you have a strategy for trying to pull businesses in?
So a lot of the spaces have been available for a long time, and the Housing Authority has kind of specific guidelines on what can go in those spaces. And so that's what I was saying with that theater space, that's kind of the caveat where they really need to have that performing arts theater in there, kind of like a stage work. So we've talked with the Housing Authority at our meetings plenty of times to kind of see what they're doing as far as trying to get businesses in there, because we're getting new businesses or new buildings built, and these ones haven't even been filled yet. So I know that they have a commercial agent that they work with. I've met with them and toured the space, but I'm not quite sure what the Housing Authority has for their marketing for those spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Clendenin.
I really appreciate the update. A lot of times we get these types of updates, and it's kind of just a repeat of things that are self-evident or things that we've had other sources. And this was really kind of filling in the gaps that are maybe not so self-evident. So I appreciate the fact that you brought this side of the development and the CRA to the attention of the board. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, just a couple of remarks from me. The theater space, I know that they have received a couple of RFPs that they've rejected, and so hopefully you all can work with them to look at some revision of that so that they can get a win and get someone in there, because I know that they received a very good proposal that they did not accept. Also, the Johnson houses, you have not mentioned that. We purchased that property over a year ago. That update should be presented to us like right now, so I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't hear anything about that. I do know that, and maybe that's on us. Is it with the Housing Authority? We purchased it and the Housing Authority is going to redevelop it?
It is. We've talked with, and I don't mean to interrupt
Go ahead,
you.
no, give me an update.
We've talked to David Hollis about that, and I think they kind of had to play around with some different ideas based off of the condition of the homes. And so they would toyed around with having it be commercial space and residential. I believe that what they're going to do for one of the properties is going to have like a local like coffee shop or like a meeting area for one of them. And then from my understanding, I believe that they're going to continue to do a build out along that same section of the property to have similar style homes in there to kind of make it not just look like two houses. And then I think they did a land swap. So they're working on it. It's kind of like the update is there's no update, but they've been working on that and getting the plans together for doing what they're gonna, end up using the homes for.
Okay.
I ask every meeting too.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, this is public comment, so, an opportunity. So for me, as the district representative, that is actually becoming unacceptable. A timeline and plan that's very specific is something that you all should be requesting, and I'm asking that of the manager as well. I'll make a motion to receive some detailed communication regarding a timeline, because they've been sitting on it for over a year.
Perfect, yep, absolutely.
Okay, anyone else? Board Member Clendenin.
I think you raised a good point, and I think it's even bigger. I'd kind of like to get an update from the Housing Authority about, where they are as far as status on a lot of the projects.
Yeah.
So, we're investing in that, and we're trying to balance out these needs between our resources, their resources. Yeah, I'd like to get a comprehensive report from them.
Yeah, well, that's so interesting. It's a couple of things that happens in the city. I think that, we as a board and as a council should, when we're approving things, we should get a little bit more information regarding how long things are going to take, because even, today with the mention of the Gator building in public comment, we've been working on that for a very long time, and it does take time, but where we're going and how we get there should be something that we should expect to hear from those presenting to us. But thank you so much for the updates. Board Member Vieira.
Thank you very much. No, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to remark that, your presentation, you're obviously not just very well prepared, but invested in your community.
Yeah.
And you don't get paid much to do this. You don't get paid anything, right? So I just wanted to just acknowledge that we appreciate all the work that you do, and everybody in our organizations that represent our CRAs do, because that's important. Just saying that and I think all of us, I know all of us appreciate that.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you all
Absolutely,
very much.
Mr. Murphy, agreed. Hopefully you didn't take that any other kind of way to get directions on the things that you should move forward.
No, not at all. I appreciate it very much.
No problem. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay. Interim Director, CRA, Mr. McCray.
Good morning again. Just coming back with the director's report. Thank you, Mr. Murphy, for his presentation. Included in the director's report was the traditional tracker for our special projects. And also there was comment last month related to receiving information on the commercial grants and updates. That was also included. That was a document that we did have internally, and we were sharing with our CACs, but we will monthly provide that to the board as well for your review and edification. Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. And the other item I would like to highlight, that we did conduct our annual orientation for CAC members. We had several new members of our CACs that you all have appointed recently, as well as some folks that have been on, for a number of years. But the information was received. Our new attorney Shepard, spoke at length about sunshine and conflicts of interest, and we did have several questions during the session, and then I also received questions from some of the folks after the session on Monday. But I think it was very beneficial to just cover some of the CRA 101, for lack of a better term or phrase, and to disseminate that information to the CAC members moving forward. And I will pause for any questions.
Board Member Herte.
Thank you. I don't know if it's a requirement that maybe we offer that class 2 or 3 times, but we make it a requirement within 6 months of being appointed that you need to attend one, or at least have a video and somehow, show that you've watched the video, because I think that is very critical. We have to take a yearly refresher of that information, of sunshine and all of that important information we have to do. It's a 4-hour course we have to do every year. So I really think that is important. So I would like to see something about that going forward. And I forgot to mention it to you during our briefing. And I also just wanted to say thank you so much for the project tracker, or the inquiry tracker. It was really very interesting to see how many people have inquired in the different CRA areas, and so I really do appreciate that. It is now up, the public can take a look at it, and it's neat to see where things are going, how many people just had an inquiry, and I thought that was very interesting. It tells me that information is getting out into the community, and so I want to congratulate you and your team for a good job there.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Any other comments? Okay. Thank you, Mr. McCray.
Thank you. Next, I will call up Ms. Orr to just discuss the CRA Green Space Acquisition Plan.
Good morning again, Courtney Orr, CRA Development Manager. This is just an update on the green space land acquisition request that was made. We are working with the Parks Department to analyze their citywide parks assessment, as well as have presented a visual to you that was provided to your aides yesterday morning. Yes. That shows where the CRA boundaries are, and where the city parks are, and the county parks as well. So that's just to visually help us identify where the gaps are and where parks could be needed. And then after working with parks and determining potential opportunities, we'll work with the real estate department to find out about land acquisition, if there are parcels available, but also keeping in mind what are those adjoining uses next to those parcels, so that we're not disrupting anything, but the ball is rolling, and I just wanted to provide an update on that we're working toward this green space acquisition plan.
Yeah. Board Member Clendenin.
Yeah, so it was my motion. I appreciate your written report, and thank you for looking at that. And of course, obviously, a lot of that intent was the concrete jungle that we know of Channelside. But thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Ms. Orr, my one particular comment is, because it is so large, if we could probably get a professional, map, like the architecture blueprint, that would be really nice. So that, instead of, moving your screen around on a monitor, it's just a little bit challenging. I like a holistic approach for all of us that maybe can even be housed in your office. But if that's possible to get that printed, that would be really great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. Okay, any other comments? Okay, let's keep this CRA meeting going.
Hey, good morning again. The next item is related to CRA disaster funding. I believe that was a motion was made by Board Member Vieira.
Right.
And I think some of that may have been remedied with the allocation of funding for other areas of the city a few weeks ago or last month when you all had that discussion. But as a CRA, we've brought forward waivers to you all for business owners that are in the have not have submitted an application formally yet, but we have language that you all approved last year that precludes them from pulling permits prior to being approved for a specific grant. And you all have, granted them a waiver to allow them to fix a roof or something to that effect. So we are working with business owners and residents to do that as well. On the housing side, I'm pretty sure, as we have released the applications last year related to the rehab program, and you all approved it in January, to be put in place across all the CRAs. I'm almost certain that several people that have applied have suffered some storm damage during the storm season back in October and September. So we are also working with another city department to apply for a grant and for tree trimming services in post-disaster storm, and that request will be for $250,000 with everything that's going on in the legislature and federally. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to fall, but we are going to move forward with the application to procure funds, and hopefully we're just going to keep our fingers crossed that happens, because I know that we received several calls, Ms. Parks and her team on the housing side, related to tree trimming services after the storms. So those are things that we are currently either doing and will be doing to assist residents within the CRA boundaries.
Thank you. Board Member Vieira.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, appreciate it. And thank you for that, Mr. McRae. So one also thing that, and it's always hard to get a balance on this, which is obviously, a lot of the flooding that happened, for example, was in non-CRA areas, South Tampa, North Tampa, and everything, but is also maybe looking at people who maybe couldn't afford to live in their homes anymore. And, we have 30% of our CRA funds going to affordable housing, and it's a balance, because one of the reasons why I thought it was so important for the city to invest and continue to invest in post-storm assistance for people in housing is to keep people in their homes, because you're going to see the economic character of a lot of these neighborhoods, a lot of working class neighborhoods change. But for people who often rent, for example, or maybe people in apartments, Timber Falls, for example, off 113th Street, to make people aware of CRA programs from that 30% who maybe can't afford to stay or couldn't stay. Some of that, I guess, is beyond us. Beyond us in the sense that they've moved if they already had to move, because this happened in October. But in other words, to the extent that it can be done, letting people know of these programs, potentially. And I can get with you offline for some of these apartments and everything like that. But thank you for your memo. It was really good as always, and you always do great work. And thank you, sir. You're the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Coordinator Development Manager for the Urban Core. I'd like to introduce the U.S. team who has been working on updating the Central Park and the Tampa Heights Riverfront CRPs. They've had a lot of community engagement over the last several months, and have taken that in to develop the components of the updated CRP. So they're going to describe those components to you, and we wanted this presentation to occur prior to requesting adoption of the updated CRP, so that you have a chance to review, ask questions, and then sometime in the probably April or May timeframe, we would request adoption of these updates. But I'd like to introduce Professor Trent Green, who will introduce his team giving the presentation today. And we'll run these back to back, Central Park and Tampa Heights.
Absolutely. Excited.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you,
morning.
Courtney. Good morning, Madam Chair, CRA board members. Trent Green, I'm Professor of Architecture and Urban Design up at USF, and I have with me today two of my research assistants who are working on both of these CRA plan updates. Two of the last remains of six. Okay, Aisa Gunraglu and Jalisa Blackshear.
Thank you.
And
Good morning, ladies.
Tampa Heights.
The slides?
Pull it up.
Okay.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, should we start
Okay.
second time?
Yes, so I see Central Park is up, so we'll start with that one. And as you know, these updates are the first updates that have been done since both of these CREs were established, both of which are the smallest CREs in the city. Central Park CRA. Go ahead. Okay, here the maps just show you the boundaries, which have not changed, of course. And then the next one. The purpose of the CRA was really to, like I say, provide an update since this plan was initially adopted in 2006, to up the CRA plan every 5 years, which is what's required by Chapter 163 of the Florida, Part 3 of the Florida statutes. And then to keep the Central Park CRA plan up to date, current and relevant to the evolving economic and social conditions in this part of the city. Go ahead. The scope, of course, is to provide an assessment of the past redevelopment activities, provide an update of the current redevelopment activities, and then identify future redevelopment opportunities that still exist within the Central Park CRA boundaries.
Yes, good morning. The Central Park CRA plan is in full compliance with Chapter 163, Part 3 of the Florida statutes. Tampa's Imagine 2040 Comprehensive Plan, Tampa zoning, and planning initiatives that were previously adopted by the City of Tampa. Our community engagement strategy was a tiered approach, which involved communication and attendance with CAC members and meetings, as well as deliberations and workshops, City of Tampa departments consultations, as well as stakeholder interviews and community workshops, in-person and online surveys.
So these two maps give you an idea of the physical conditions in the Central Park CRA back in 2003, just prior to the establishment of the, or adoption rather, of the plan. And then what it sort of looks like today, of course, this image on the right is a little bit dated because there's a lot more construction along that eastern edge with the gasworks development. So this matrix sort of shows the completed redevelopment projects in the Central Park CRA since inception, but we've categorized these in terms of residential development, institutional development, both infrastructure projects as well as open space projects and amenities. This image sort of shows where the remaining redevelopment opportunities actually are in the Central Park CRA. Again, this is a little bit dated because there is construction on the eastern edge of the Encore development, as well as a little bit further south on I'm not sure if it's the second phase of the gasworks project, but it's well underway. Up to the north, tan area, that's the remainder of the Central Park apartments. And then further north, up into that triangular area next to the interstate, those are vacant or underutilized properties, several of which we've identified as opportunities for redevelopment, particularly along that western edge of North Nebraska, which is what Mr. Murphy referred to a moment ago. This just sort of shows you again what's been happening with the Encore development and the number of parcels that they do. Most of these have been parcel 8, parcel 10. Parcel 8 has been built on. Parcel 12 is under construction, and hopefully parcel 10 will be underway soon. And the possibility of doing something right at the corner of Casson, Nebraska on parcel 13. So these images also show, again, sort of the scale and the massing that's being envisioned for the build-out of this area. And these are some of what some of those buildings might look like. I believe the Gasworks townhouse project, condominiums rather, are completed at this point. This matrix on the left sort of gives you an idea of the range of different building types that could be built on in the Central Park CRA on the remaining vacant and underutilized property. And then these are just some sample images that gives you an idea of this, again, the scale of what could happen there. We thought it would be good to sort of include this image to give you an idea of the overall massing that's likely to evolve in this part of the city, both in the CRA as well as what's being proposed in the Gasworks project across the Nuccio Parkway.
We have compiled and itemized activities based off of the annual CRA activities report, and this allowed us to identify and assess redevelopment trends throughout the Central Park CRA.
And this last matrix sort of shows how we took your priority criteria and rolled them into what we're calling key performance indicators or metrics to give you an idea of how redevelopment activity in the past meets your criteria today. So I'll let Aisa talk about the policy recommendations for each one of these if we did make some.
Okay.
So the first one is economic development. In the Central Park CRA, many buildings have been already undertaken. And so,
Excuse me, how much time are you going to need for your presentation? You have more, how many slides do you have?
this is the last one.
This is the
Oh,
last one
great.
for this
Okay,
one.
yeah.
But now we do
Thank
have
you.
Tampa Heights.
And that's
Riverfront.
fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so in addition to what's already been undertaken, additional commercial and mixed-use development should be encouraged to provide more neighborhood-serving commercial uses and local job opportunities as well as is already being undertaken in the presentation we previously saw. For attainable housing, there are some affordable units in the Encore development as well as elderly housing, but the TIF fund expenditures should be prioritized to acquire vacant underutilized property as has been done and put aside for affordable and mixed income housing or mixed use development that has an affordable unit component. Additionally, grants, tax credits, and other financial strategies can be used to facilitate construction of affordable and workforce housing in the CRA, and also regulatory and other constraints that hinder streamlined reviews and approval processes of affordable and work housing projects should be identified, and other subsidies, development incentives, and other opportunities for inclusion of affordable and workforce housing units in the market rate residential projects in the CRA should be identified. For connectivity, the safety and we should be providing additional enhanced pedestrian features at the key southwest and southeast corners of the CRA. Redevelopment projects should be encouraged at the intersections of East Cass Street and North Nebraska Avenue and the Nuccio Parkway as a multi-directional gateway between Central Avenue District, downtown, and Ybor City, and the proposed Brightline train station, which and incorporate small-scale gateway placemaking and pedestrian enhancements along North Nebraska Avenue and East 7th Avenue and East Palm Avenue intersections to facilitate greater connectivity between Tampa Heights and Ybor City. For the quality of life, we should continue to implement small-scale public realm, public art, pedestrian amenity features like those identified in the CAC and community workshops throughout the CRA to complement what's going on already in the redevelopment and contribute to its unique identity and sense of place and improve the livability and well-being of the residents. And for community engagement, we have folded that into our process, and we have no further recommendations on that front.
Any comments on this portion of the presentation from the board? I just have one. I really appreciate, you know, the fact that we should encourage the mixed-use development in this community as well. You probably, hopefully you'll be saying that for Tampa Heights as well,
Yes.
when we are considering projects, because that, you know, informs the community that there are things for them, walkable, and that's really important. So I'm glad that you all pointed that out and it was represented in your report. Board Member Carlson.
Yeah, I would just recommend that we've had long discussions about this other times, but I would recommend you replace public art with art activation.
Okay.
Public art by itself is a very specific bureaucratic process that the city has to go through. Art activation is something completely different that's easier to access.
Okay, thank you.
Which can include, for example, convincing art galleries to move in and performance, dance performances and other things
Yeah.
besides just public art.
I like that, Board Member Carlson. Okay, thank you. So now we're going to move to Tampa Heights.
Yes.
Ms. Soto, can you set the timer, please, for this portion of the presentation? Just for efficiency, you know.
I don't know. Oh, here we go. It's coming.
Okay. Thank you. So rolling right into the Tampa Heights Riverfront CRA plan update. Here you can see, again, some aerial maps that just sort of show you, again, on the left, what the area looked like when the CRA plan was adopted initially. Now, this was after, of course, a lot of clearance had been done. The old police station site, as well as some of the other properties that were in the area. And then, of course, on the right, you can sort of see it relative to that that sort of northern bend of the Hillsborough River, and then, of course, the Tampa Heights community just to the east of that. So again, the purpose of the CRA plan update was same as the Central Park CRA plan, to provide an update on the status of things, redevelopment within the area. Since the plan was adopted, and the scope of the CRA plan update is essentially the same as well.
The Tampa Heights Riverfront CRA plan is in full compliance with all applicable requirements of Chapter 163, Part 3 of the Florida statutes. It's also compliance with Tampa's Imagine 2040 comprehensive plan, City of Tampa zoning, and planning initiatives adopted by the City of Tampa. Our community engagement strategy, again, we use the tiered approach, which involved area stakeholder interviews, community workshops, and online surveys, as well as in-person meet and attendance with the Tampa Heights CAC, as well as City of Tampa department consultations and other community meetings.
Now, these maps give you an idea of the physical conditions. Again, on the left, what things sort of looked like in 2002, and then an aerial image of just last year. And of course, these are certainly changing quite a bit in this CRA. As you know, you have a longstanding development agreement with one entity who actually controls the remainder of the developer property within the Tampa Heights Riverfront CRA. And then again, this is just a matrix sort of showing the completed redevelopment projects within the CRA for commercial development, residential development, institutional development, infrastructure, public open space, as well as parking. This image just sort of shows you the remainder of the land that could be developed in the Tampa Heights Riverfront CRA. It totals to approximately about 20 acres. Okay, so there's still a lot to do. But this CRA is developing into. If you go to the next image, as you can see in these images from their master plan from several years ago. I do know they have a new master plan that they're working from, a revised one, I should say. But it is transforming this area, particularly this area, into a mixed-use urban village. Again, some of the remaining entitlements for future development within the CRA, and this image on the right just gives you an idea of what, this is from their master plan, an older master plan, let's say, an idea of what things could look like. And again, the range of building types that could be built within on a lot of that vacant land within the remaining years of the CRA itself, as the developer proceeds with their phase development for completing their overall master plan. And then some of the types of buildings, images rather, some of the types of buildings that could be built there as well. And again, another sort of three-dimensional diagram that sort of shows you, again, all of what's planned or proposed, both in the CRA as well as adjacent to it on the east, and across the river and the West River development, which is most of this is pretty much done now.
And again, we compiled and itemized activities from the CRA's annual activity report, and this allowed us to identify and to assess past and current redevelopment trends in Tampa Heights.
Last slide.
Okay.
Okay, so these are, again, these are this economic, the key performance indicators and the assessment of their status. So economic development, the first one, construction has been underway, projects have been completed, but, there's still a ways to go, so there's no recommendations at this time for that objective. For attainable housing, there is an ongoing need for affordable, attainable workforce housing in the CRA, and currently only market rate housing is being planned, and to date, there is nothing that has been built. Additional affordable housing should be encouraged in the CRA to prove accessible housing for local workforce, comply with statutory requirements, and meet the City of Tampa's affordable housing objectives. And available to funds should be prioritized, and grants and tax credits opportunities should be identified and explored for regulatory relief to support inclusion of affordable units in the market rate residential buildings in the CRA. In regards to connectivity, opportunities should be identified for expanding connectivity into the CRA from the north and the east with new public realm features as described in the city's walk-bike plan. Coordination with the Florida Department of Transportation should be made to implement additional public safety and connectivity features along North Tampa Street. HART should be coordinated with in their plans for Tico's streetcar extension and station stops adjacent to the CRA. For the quality of life, additional small-scale public realm measures should be implemented, which have been identified in the CRA workshop, such as wayfinding, placemaking, park enhancements, vitality, its sense of place, livability, and support ongoing redevelopment, and implement of public art features throughout the CRA to enhance its general character, its place brand, and its overall visual identity. And for community engagement, we have folded that into our process, and we have no further recommendations.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
Board
you.
Member Carlson?
Yeah, and thank you for the work on this. In both of these, I would ask you to go back to our strategic plan that we did for the CRA, and we spent a lot of time looking at the difference between having an output goal, which is to build buildings and infrastructure, and the outcome goal, which is to improve, as you say, quality of life. But quality of life is not measured in terms of sidewalk miles or bicycle lane miles and things like it's determined in terms of its actual impact on the people. And the same thing with economic development. It should ultimately be measured in terms of per capita income, median household income, especially in areas that are gentrifying. How does it affect the families that have been there for a long time? One of the mistakes Tampa's made for a long time in the past is to be focused on what I call the edifice complex, that the goal is just buildings. And yes, the 163 talks about physical infrastructure and has some limitations on that, but that doesn't mean that we can't be focused on the outcome, which is how do we improve people's lives. And so an example is when you look at it spatially with the land that Armature Works can develop, what's going to be the experience of the Tampa Heights neighborhood interfacing with those spaces? How will they and the new residents there, how will they benefit from those spaces and the interactivity there?
Board Member Clendenin.
Just real quick, kind of doubling down on what Councilman Carlson said. You know, you do have some really interesting things developing around the CRA. They're not actually inclusive, but having that relationship via, again, not necessarily the length of sidewalks, but the value added to the sidewalks as far as walkability, the width, connectivity to the proposed streetcar extension, and then you've got the Publix grocery store on the other side of the CRA. You know, having that resident interconnectivity to those adjacent neighborhoods, I think, is going to be really important because the CRA is so confined and so limited. But the impact that it can have on the future residents living within those boundaries and, of course, the adjacent neighborhoods is going to be critical to the development of Tampa. So I appreciate y'all looking, you know, outside of that small box. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 9. We want to kick this off, Board Member Vieira?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate that. So this deals with the fare-free streetcar, and there are some internal Hart Board issues with this where, and I know Mr. Willis is here, Justin is here with Hart, and the issue was that there was a dispute between Hart, I shouldn't say dispute, a disagreement between Hart and the city of Tampa as to ongoing costs for keeping the streetcar, thank you, sorry, long week, the streetcar fare free. And so, you know, we were tasked with speaking to the mayor's office about coming up with a compromise on how the city could assume these funds, because there really, I don't believe there is will on the Hart Board through a majority vote. And note my qualification, I don't believe for Hart assuming that responsibility. So Mr. Willits came up with an idea on taking a look at a funding allocation that was being made for bus shelters, which couldn't be gotten to this year, into moving those funds, because again, the bus shelters couldn't be done until next year as a temporary solution. And I do have some questions on the funds that were allocated here, and maybe Justin or someone from staff could answer that, because this appears to be less than what I understand was allocated for this. But so that was sort of the compromise that was reached, and I know this memo sort of memorializes, you know, things going forward, but this is this is very, very temporary, and all this does is push this issue off a little bit more. But Mr. McCray or Justin, I don't know if y'all wanted to speak, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Good morning, Cedric
Interim
McCray,
Director, yes.
Tampa CRA Director. And I'm going to invite Ms. Orr and Ms. Thrower up. They were closer
course.
to it, working with their CACs. But to your point, Councilman Vieira, this is somewhat of a Band-Aid. The funding that's been allocated and recommended by the CACs will only take us to the end of this fiscal year. So a suggestion would be to, you know, have those conversations as we're approaching budget season to see what we may be able to do moving forward if we want to continue to provide the service at that rate.
Yes.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Morning, Courtney Orr, Development Manager for Downtown.
Yes.
And I just wanted to mention that after the motion was made at the last meeting, we immediately started working with Justin and his team to figure out how we could make this work. And they came to each of our CACs, Downtown, Channel District, and E-Board to provide a presentation. And the premise was that the $700,000 that was helping that free fare option available to the riders, it expired, so we were trying to make up the $700,000 that would continue to keep the fare free for our visitors and residents. So we split that into thirds. So $233,000 from Channel District, $233,000 from Downtown, and $234,000 E-Board paid an extra $1,000, $234 from E-Board. That would cumulatively make up the $700,000 to allow the fares to be free until September or whatever the next plan is. But for now, we were able to get consensus from each of those CACs to reallocate funding to make that funding possible.
Thank you for working with Hart to do that. Ms. Throy, you want to add to that?
Thank you. Thank you. Brenda Thrower, Ybor City CRA Manager. The only thing I'll add is, I know there was the confusion about the Hart bus stop money. The only budget that actually had allocated funds in their FY25 budget was Ybor 1. So when you look at your sheet there, and all the reallocations, you'll see that there is a reallocation of $100,000 that was already in FY25 that's going towards this funding request today. The other budgets didn't have it in there yet, but there was a plan that Hart was working on with the city through our special projects to come forward with that ask.
Okay. Thank you.
Helps. You're
Board
welcome.
Member Hurtak.
Yes, so from my understanding though, this is really, they need 1.4 million, not the 700 million. So I'm curious if the CACs had any recommendations on other places to find the money.
This is for us.
Yeah, I'm asking our
Yes,
CRA managers.
Yes, at the Ybor City CRA meeting, which was the first group that they came to, there was that discussion. There was two of our board members that said, what about the Port Authority or other entities that could help support this effort? So that was just tossed out there, but they were just looking at their own coffers of what they could support. Just to mind y'all, we actually give about 1.5 million from Tampa CRA every year. We've been giving. This is a double ask this year, because if you look back on your presentation, you see what the current support has been for years on the streetcar. So each of the districts have been giving a little bit, about 200, it's give or take, but each CRA is given about $500,000 a year. So.
Yeah, and so I think that's really my question, because we got an email to that effect saying, hey, why aren't we getting some participation from other entities that might benefit from the streetcar? And so I was wondering if you're planning, or rather I guess I'm asking, if you're going to plan to do any have any conversations with some of the entities that receive benefits from this.
If I may. So I think the real question is, Justin Willits, Director of Planning and Scheduling from Hart. Sorry, I always forget to do that. I think the real question is for THS, and how do they plan to fund the streetcar next year? Because THS is actually the one that makes the request, because the city is supposed to fund. The THS has worked with the CRAs all these years to find matching funds. So I would say that question's really for THS and the city to decide how they want to fund the streetcar, not necessarily for how the CRA would want to do it.
Okay.
If you all want to continue to do it, that's the pleasure of the board and the CRA board. But really, it's a question for during the budget process of the city. And this is helping address that shortfall for the administrative costs and some other things. And we're comfortable. We did the shortfall was projected to be 1.3, but given that was a plan, right? So we budgeted for that. The projection right now we feel is going to come in under that. So we're comfortable with the 700,000 filling that gap and getting us into planning for the next fiscal year.
Board member, and so then I'm going to ask Board Member Maniscalco, I know you sit on that board. Can you speak to what that board is willing to do, the other entities they're willing to talk to try to get some funding?
So from my understanding, you had mentioned 1.3 million, but estimates or the real numbers are coming in a little bit underneath, but you were saying 700,000 is the number that is comfortable to continue it for the fare free for at least one more year.
To get us,
would allow us to start planning for next year, right?
To get us through the end of this fiscal year. Yes.
Okay, so Ms. Thrower, you had mentioned that Ybor 1 was contributing to this. How many CRAs contribute to?
I'm sorry, that's confusing. There are 4 CRAs that are contributing to this. Ybor 1, Ybor 2, Channel District, and Downtown.
And what is are they equally split? Is it 25, 25%
Not
each?
quite. It's more 1/3. So what happens in Ybor 1 and 2 is that we split it 80-20 because the streetcar goes more through Ybor 1, but it goes through Ybor 2. So we've done that for years, that out of the 1/3 split, let's just say it's 225,000, we have, and it's in your chart in here, Ybor 1 gives 188,000 a year.
Okay.
That's the base. and then 37,000 comes from Ybor 2. So when we were given this ask for the 700,000, we did the same split.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
But it goes into obviously downtown to Whiting Station. We've talked about expanding it further north. That's another discussion, you know, to take it to Palm and everything. In order to make it work, my question is, can we look at the downtown CRA, which is most flush with cash? I don't want to say flush with cash, but has more opportunity of available dollars to make up that shortfall, considering, you know, we're looking at the future of expanding the streetcar, which would benefit more of downtown and go into like Tampa Heights. But in order to meet that 700,000 and not burden Ybor and not, you know, look at the other ones that you've mentioned, can we just make that ask instead of, I don't know, I'm just trying to make it work and see where we take the money out
Right now,
of.
you have all 3 CACs supporting this, and they're
Okay.
fine with this fiscal year with the split. Matter of fact, I think that's how it's really sold amongst them, because they all knew that they weren't the only one involved in this.
Okay.
So, and again, we have been supporting the streetcar for many, many years, so this was just an additional ask.
Okay.
But that could be considered in the future.
But, you know, and I'll stop with this. If you look at the ridership, it's continuously going up.
Correct.
Yes, there's nothing free in life. It's coming from somewhere. But let's say absent, I used this at the TPO yesterday, it's absent of fares. And it's not just tourists that use it, because when I use it, which is often, it's a little bit of everybody. Yes, you're going to go down to Greco Plaza, and it's going to be people from the convention center or the hotels. But I see people from Ybor coming off in the Channel area, or people from downtown. Like what I'll do is I'm parked here and I want to go to Ybor on a Friday evening with my friends. I'll meet them via streetcar, and I'm not paying for the parking there, which yes, it's 2 hours free in some lots, the city lots, but I'm not giving somebody $10 to park. I'm not, you know, but people are using it for work. People that are living, working, they're using it, and it's always busy. I haven't seen it, maybe at 7 in the morning, early on, you know, it might be light, but it's constantly packed. So the use is there, the desire is there, the support from the CACs within those areas is there, the money is there. So I understand, you know, because of the grant and not having the grant, and I've had other discussions at the streetcar meetings, you know, what if we went back to a fare and just made it $1? Now that we have so much more ridership, will it balance it out? Well, you have to reactivate the fare boxes or get new fare boxes because the technology is different. So, okay, that's it. But the will is there. Thank you.
The will's there. Thank you. Board Member Miranda, followed by Board Member Clendenin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wonder, you know, how I feel, because there's two things in my mind that the ferry is one of them, and the streetcar is the second one. Everything that comes around goes around. I don't know what the federal government's going to do tomorrow regarding any help from anything in government that we ask for. So we're going to have a shortfall, possibly small, and plus much larger than what I anticipate. So we start funding these things, all of them, and the government cuts us back. What are we going to do? Keep funding? How can you do that? And I'm not talking about just the streetcar and the ferry. I never voted for the ferry. And I voted against the streetcar fare because that was already the #1 area that was bringing more funds to the fare boxes than any other route and maybe I'm wrong, that's what I remember. So what happened here is that instead of being just local, the streetcar goes, the buses go everywhere, outside the city limits, am I correct?
Yes, I'm not.
What does it cost to take somebody from here to Waimama?
Let's continue. Is that a question?
No, I'm asking.
Is that rhetorical?
Yeah, I'm asking a question if it's Waimama that you go, do you go outside the city limits?
Yeah, we're a county organization, countywide organization.
And then what galls me a little bit is when you talk to other governments, we produce 30% of the sales tax, but when it comes up to divvy the money, they don't give you back 30% on anything that we do with them. And I'm not talking about the streetcar, I'm talking about the analogy that I've gathered in my mind the last few months. The sales tax that went out to the government that was filed a lawsuit, came back, we paid 30.1% of that money, and we're not getting 30.1% of the money. Yes, we're asked for the burden. I don't know if the county's participating in the free rides with it. Are they or not?
I can tell you that HART is getting 0%, and we're supposed to get 50%.
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
I don't know why we're talking about the sales tax. I'm a little confused.
Well, because when you look at government, you have a lot of floating things that go together. If I do government just one line or one line, there's a lot of things that are tied into things. So maybe you don't understand what I understand, maybe I don't understand what you understand, sir. But when you have 30% collection in something, you only get back 20, that means that the money that I would have had to fund this thing is not there. That's what that means, directly or indirectly. I have to spend it somewhere else. You can correct me if you want.
I can tell you that 60% of our revenue comes from unincorporated county, and the city gets 50% of HART's service, but that is bus related. We're talking about streetcar, and that is the city's.
And the streetcar should have and I'm not as smart as Mr. Carlson on advertising and all that, but you ought to have something saying, travel 5 miles, pay 1/4 of the rent. Pay something, it gets so much back. It has to have, it's got to change. Sooner or later, this government, like all government, from what I see coming, from Washington and Tallahassee, is not going to be able to throw money around.
Understood.
That's it.
Board Member Clendenin, followed by Board Member Carlson. Councilmember Hurtate, Board Member, did you want to speak again? Okay.
So I won't revisit our trauma and drama about how we got here, but you know, that's one thing. I do support this as a compromise measure to maintain the success of the streetcar. I would like to remind everyone about the success of this type of transportation. If you have a car on the road, there's an average of 1.5 persons per car. If we are successful in building transit in the city of Tampa, so we're taking for every car, every 1.5 persons that travels in that transit, we're taking a car off of the road. So for our residents of Harbor Island that suffers through gridlock trying to get on and off that island, can you imagine if we did not have that streetcar and for every 1.5 persons, there's another vehicle trying to get through the Amalie Arena area, or on North Florida when we're trying to travel on North Florida, or getting in and out of Ybor City during their peak times. Hopefully we'll be able to expand the streetcar up to Columbus, and the amount of gridlock that we're going to take off the streets as we build out. Look at all that undeveloped land we have in North downtown Tampa and parts of Tampa Heights, and the amount of residents that are going to come in that area. Think again, for every 1.5 persons, another vehicle on the road we're taking off. You see the success and the streetcar being one of the most successful streetcars in the nation. And then with what we're doing with Route 1, and you know, Councilwoman Hurtek brought before us, and I'm sure she'll share some of the ridership numbers that we've seen with Route 1 with the fare free. And again, those are new people that are riding the bus now that were not riding the bus just a few months ago. For every 1.5 persons, that's a vehicle we're taking off of the roads. So the folks of you that do not ride mass transit, guess what? You're competing with less people on the road. So this is benefiting not just the folks that are sitting in these seats, it's benefiting everybody in the city of Tampa. And that's why it's so important that we look for creative ways to maintain these levels of service, because it's no longer a, what if we did this, what will happen? We know what is happening. We see by eliminating these fares on the streetcar, how many people that we are putting in seats. We've now seen, now granted the data is too early, so I'm not gonna take this as a long-term assumption, because we're gonna have a year to study this. But right now it's looking promising with what we did with Route 1. We've seen the success initially. Hopefully it will continue to climb. But again, it's been a very successful program. So we have to think outside the box. People spend way too much money on transportation. If we can eliminate the need to have a car payment, to have car maintenance, to have insurance payments. I mean, God, look at the insurance. The percentage of money that people are paying towards these, to get from point A to point B, to get to their doctor appointment, for senior citizens, to get to the pharmacy, for young people to get to their places of education and places of employment. If we could eliminate that portion of what they're spending out of their monthly income, guess what? They can start affording housing. They can afford to live in these places. So we have to do these kind of things. And this is the type of initiative, while it wasn't a perfect way of getting here, I would have preferred longer range planning and some information shared up front so that we can pivot to this and get to these things. And this is what we're going to do for the next fiscal year and those fiscal years after that. But this is why we have to continue these types of programs. This is the future of Tampa. Unless you guys want to live in Orlando, if you want to create an Orlando in Tampa, then have at it. But if we want to avoid the mess that we see just down the road, this is what we need to be doing.
Board Member Carlson, followed by Board Member Hurtak. And then back to you, Mr. Vieira.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about Route 1 some time ago, and you know, my position is that Hart was moved out of the city during the Martinez administration with its own taxing authority, and the Hart Board's responsibility to fund itself, not to ask the city to subsidize. Although philosophically, I agree with trying to experiment with supporting routes like Route 1. I think Hart should do that. The Hart Board needs to step up and make that decision, not the city. The ad valorem taxes that we have don't even cover police and fire. People think that because the property taxes are going up every year that we are flush with dollars. We have been lucky the last few years to have a little bit extra, which we've been mostly paying in additional salaries to people who hadn't had raises in a very long time. But the city doesn't have excess cash, even if we philosophically agree with it. There are a lot of things that we want to do that would be great for the community, but we don't have the money. And now we found out that the city is on the verge of maxing out all of its credit cards in terms of debt. So we need to figure that out. Board member Vieira mentioned the city. Is the city, can somebody tell us, is the city putting in money or is it just the CRA? Does anybody know, is the city putting in money or is it just the CRA?
The CRAs.
So unless the city is putting money, if it's a CRA project, unless the city's putting money, or even if they are, since there's already CRA money, we need to make sure we identify the CRA project. And when the press conference happens, there should be no press conference for the CRA unless it's scheduled with the CRA board chair.
Agreed.
There should be no press conference. I said this to prior chairs. The CRA press conference about the CRA or to educate the public about how we're spending CRA money. And why is it that press conferences are being held without CRA board members being invited or without scheduling around the chair? The chair is the most important person at a CRA press conference. The public deserves to know. We also need to make sure that, just like other people get sponsorship, that the CRA different districts get sponsorship as well, so that people know. I'm okay, because this was something that happened after Hart was moved out and by the Greco administration. I'm okay doing this on a temporary basis, but as Board Member Miranda said, we've got to find new funding sources in the future. You all mentioned that the legislature is trying again to get rid of CRAs. They're trying to get rid of, the governor's trying to get rid of property taxes. Property taxes are a relatively small part of our budget. We can't take that small part of our budget and keep allocating it across all these different things. CRA money really is property tax money. And so without the CRA, the money is still there, but we don't have enough to even pay a portion of our overall budget. We've got to figure out how to do this. So I would suggest that we set up another time to talk about this, maybe in City Council or in the CRA, but we've got to figure out a different funding source for this for the future. It seems to be success that it's free, but if the state and federal government are not going to fund it, how do we figure this out? It's not sustainable the way it is, because the tools we're using to pay for it might go away. And just while I have the floor, one last comment, just personal thing. Justin, I'm incredibly sad. Justin and his wife are leaving Tampa Bay tomorrow, and I just want to tell you, you come here to talk about these things, and I haven't always agreed with you on some of them, but I know the things you've been involved in the community for many, many years, creating a vision for Tampa to be a walkable, bikeable, transit-oriented community, and I just personally can't thank you enough for what you and your wife have done to contribute to this community over the years, and I hope that you don't stay gone very long and that you come back. Thank you.
Board Member Hurtak.
Thank you. I agree with that. I know that, we've talked about certain CRAs that have more money being able to contribute more, but I don't think legally we can do that. We need to legally make sure it's working. I mean, our lawyer can hop in if he wants to, but I don't really think that we could burden one CRA that happens to have more money. But I'll piggyback on what Board Member Carlson said. No one's talking about other entities that could be paying into the streetcar. I mean, quite frankly, if it's being used, even a third for tourism dollars should probably pay for some of it. So we really need to open up the scope, whether that's at the Chico board, the Tampa Historic Streetcar board discussions, or as city council. But we absolutely have to start talking. If we want to keep it fare free, we need to start talking about what other entities besides governmental entities can, that are benefiting from it, or would be willing to put money into it, because otherwise we are going to put a fare back on, because as others have said, we just don't know about a lot of funding sources going forward.
Board Member Vieira, and then returning to Board Member Clendenin.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Miranda, did you want to speak again?
After them, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, and I wanted to again thank you all for your work on this. Again, this was meant to be a temporary solution to something that, again, in speaking with the mayor, I said, look, if you want to preserve, if the city, CRA, whatever entity wants to preserve fare free on the streetcar, get it done now, even if temporary, because it could be going away. Those are just the facts. You're not entitled to your own opinion, to your facts. So that's just the way it is. With regards to the board getting notice, when I'd spoken with the mayor about it, or the mayor's office about it 2 months ago, I was under an understanding they were going to be briefing CRA members, and that, to the best of my knowledge, didn't happen. I don't believe it did. So that's why we're dealing with it, I guess, if you will, now and everything. And again, this is a temporary solution, and we'll look at more widespread, sustainable, long-term, permanent solutions. And also wanted to join in again with Justin. You know, we certainly will miss you, and you've always done a great job. And I remember just a lot of different things we've worked on. You've always done very, very well. And actually, and Justin, I do have a question with you. Whenever we motion for this, does it need to be retroactive in terms of any funds that have been spent already? Is this retroactive?
For this fiscal year, yes, that would probably be wise.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. So, you know, in terms of the motion, Councilman Clendenin has always, had a great passion for the streetcar. I'd ask, sir, if, just since you're the dude on this, so to speak, if you want to make the motion, but I would ask that you do it retroactively, as Mr. Willich just talked about, and everything.
Okay, well, we'll go to you, Mr. Miranda, followed by.
Thank you. In fact, just let me later. No one in this city has ever voted for the streetcar on the original vote. Only one, and you're looking at that person. I voted to put the streetcar in. I voted with Mayor Greco to start the streetcar all the way to Ybor City. And if I remember correctly, and I'm going to my mind, there's thousands of votes that I've taken, I think the cost was about $11 million. That was then, in the mid-90s, I think. So if I remember that, I remember all the work that they did, really, the administration. We were the legislative part. We accepted, and I recall, I think it was a unanimous vote, I'm not sure.
No,
one vote? Well, thank you for the correction. At least it wasn't two. I would have made two mistakes in one item. But what I'm trying to say is that no one thought of it. Greco, myself, and others wrote the streetcar. You know why? Because we were the oldest.
Okay.
We had ridden the streetcar. I don't think there's anyone here that rode the streetcar.
I just saw pictures.
Other than one. And you look at that person. But times change. People look for different things, how to transfer, how to move, how to walk, how to ride, whatever. So we did this with a short item to drive this out. I think there was 2 votes against it, if I recall. And now we're asking for an extension of something that 2 of us didn't vote for. I don't know how the other one's going to vote, but I'm just saying that it has to be done where the public understands what we're doing. And I don't think they fully understand what we're doing, because we're doing to the same line that had the most streetcar that had the fare. Maybe I'm wrong, because I don't sit on the board. But if I recall that, if you really want to try to help somebody get free, go to the one that's not doing anything. See how many riders you get in for free, and I guarantee you're going to 100% return on ridership, because they don't have the money to ride either. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Closing out with Board Member Clendenin.
Yeah, just a little bit of fact-checking on how this thing is funded. The current streetcar line, when it was implemented, there's a service area that's defined, in the current route of the streetcar. How it was done and when it was first created is the businesses in that service area, actually their property taxes, they've got a streetcar line item on their property taxes that actually help fund this. So there is actually only from businesses. So as there is a reference, y'all, this is a short-term plan, but there is a long-term plan for funding this type of mechanism. And I think it's a similar type of way we see, you know, lights being funded in historic areas. And, you know, we have these areas that are defined, these geographical areas that are defined, that are service areas for these special types of services. So what legal staff is starting to do right now is we're looking at proposing the extension of the streetcar, is defining the service area of who is actually utilizing the existing streetcar and then the proposed extension. And that service area will be defined, and then there'll be a movement to have a special tax district that will be in that area, and that area will help fund the future development and the future ridership for the not only the existing streetcar, but also the expansion. And these are creative ways that you can, you know, again, as expansion, when it was first created, it already exists right now for the existing streetcar, but it only pertains to businesses. It doesn't contain to residents. Well, you know, back when this was done, all there was warehouses like in Channelside, and Water Street didn't exist, and Gas Works didn't exist, and nobody was really living at the time in Ybor City, except for, you know, people who weren't really paying a lot of property taxes because the properties were really low income, and so there wasn't a lot of revenue, and there wasn't any big condos in downtown either. As Councilman Miranda says, you know, the only residents down here were the ones that are in the jail. But now we have this new development, and a lot of this is we can attribute to things like the streetcar moving through the city of Tampa. So this is a short-term measure. There is a long-term game plan for viability and funding, and to be able to have this. And I think it's the type of model we're just going to have, as we've seen, like what the governor is doing with his proposal of property taxes. We're going to have to look at more creative ways to do these things as we move forward. And so with that, I gladly make a motion for the CRA board to approve the transfer of CRA funds from the 4 CRAs with the equivalent amount that was presented, which I'm not going to try to recreate because there was $1 difference between the one CRA and everybody else, as presented to the board this morning to authorize that transfer for fiscal year 24.
Do I have a second?
And second, if I may, and with the retroactive.
Well, that's why I said fiscal year 24.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Thank
you
you. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Clendenin, followed by a second from Board Member Vieira. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Oh, you said aye?
Aye for the second.
Aye for not. Motion carries with Board Member Clendenin voting no.
Not Clendenin.
I'm
I know.
sorry, Board Member, give me a second. Board Member Miranda voting no.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Can I have a motion for the required approvals 10 through 18?
So moved.
Second by Board Member Miranda. All those in favor? Okay, under new business, Board Member Miranda.
None, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Board Member Vieira.
I have
Maniscalco.
Mr. Willits, thank you for everything. I mean, it's already been said, but we'll certainly miss you. We hope you come back. You and your wife are fantastic individuals. Thank you, you know, for all you've done, so we appreciate you. Best of luck, sir.
Okay. Board Member Clendenin.
Actually, you know, I have a question for you.
Okay. Go ahead. Okay, while he's thinking, Board Member Hurtak. Carlson.
Just something quick. If the legislature ends CRAs, you know, I've always said CRAs are for lazy policymakers because we still collect the same amount of taxes. We can reallocate it. And so I would like to make a motion to ask the CFO to come to us at the June 12th meeting to talk about the possibility of continuing to measure the East Tampa CRA or virtual CRA funds in the event the legislature ends the CRA early.
Okay.
So the idea would be that if they put a cap on it and say you can't spend anything more, whatever mechanism the CFO is already using to measure what the taxes, that tax increment is inside East Tampa as an example, we can continue to measure that, and then we could hand that to the city council. The city council can continue to allocate it in East Tampa. We're not, if the CRA goes away, it doesn't mean we don't have the money. We still have the same money, and we can still allocate it in the same ways.
Okay.
No, we don't have the same amount of money.
The county has a declining a declining scale of what they're participating in other places. So we're not involved in what the state is going to decide, but we can still continue to allocate the city's money if we continue. And downtown, this county's not providing anything, by the way.
Okay, well, our CRA attorney is gonna talk about some, CRA matters from a legislative standpoint, but Board Member Hurtak.
I think it's a little premature, just because it hasn't happened yet. I mean, I'd be fine to put it as a placeholder, and then we could take it away if it doesn't happen. I mean, but I also don't want staff to start that, but I'm also not okay with just doing East Tampa. That's not fair to the other CRAs. I mean, if we're gonna do one, we're gonna do all, or we're not gonna do them. I don't think that's fair. We can have that discussion and that debate, and that's probably what the state wants us to do, is to start fighting about this. But I wouldn't support one CRA over the others until I hear from the CACs and the types of things they want to accomplish. We also, I mean, there's going to be a lot going on if they do away, because they're not just doing away with CRAs, they're doing away with special taxing districts. So what you just talked about for transit is not going to happen, because they're doing away with special taxing districts. So
Proposing.
Well, proposing to do that. You are right. That's the hope that they have. So I do support the idea of looking forward. I just don't know that we need to do it yet, and I would only support if it's everyone.
Is there a second for Board Member Carl?
If I may?
Yes?
Thank you.
Is there your second?
Yes, ma'am. So
Okay.
here's why I'm doing it. I support Councilwoman Hurtak's statement that we ought to look at more CRAs. But I think this is being done, and Councilman Carlson, correct me if I'm wrong, because probably East Tampa is the one that's the most acute in terms of need, I think. Yeah, and go ahead. Sir.
I'm happy to insert the word example. That's what my intention was, is that East Tampa would be an example, so they don't have to study all of them. But I don't think it's a lot of work, because the measurement mechanism is already there. And so the question is, how could you continue that if this happens? And surely if they don't do anything, we can cancel it. You all know that I would not be in favor of continuing the downtown or channel district CRAs. We can still spend money in those two places, but we wouldn't have all that money trapped. But West Tampa and the places that need it, we could continue to look at this, but we could also look at spending money in other areas. But this is just an example to measure to see what would happen if we continue measuring.
And it's may I?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I see it as a placeholder. I'm fine with it. And again, the legislature proposes all sorts of wacky things, and some of them pass, a lot of them pass, many of them don't, thank God. And hopefully this will be one that doesn't, but is a placeholder. And if it doesn't pass, then, so I'll second under the idea that if it doesn't pass, withdrawn, move forward, and that's good. I'm fine with it.
Board Member Clendenin, followed by Board Member Miranda.
Yeah, I just don't want, I mean, as far as like a concept and an idea and, throwing it out there to be ready for it. But as we see what's happening in Washington, and we're seeing more and more of it happening in Tallahassee, is they're flooding the zone. They just inundate us with stuff, and they want us to chase these things. They want us to get distracted by stuff. So I think we should be aware of what's happening. I think we should have a placeholder. I don't think we should spend city resources. I don't think we should spend CRA money chasing, because we're just chasing our tail. And the next crazy thing's coming up tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow there'll be 3 more crazy things. This is the world we're going to be living in for the next X number of years. So I don't want to necessarily devote any resources to it. But again, I think raising the awareness of it and being out there that this is a potential problem. But let's not chase our tail.
Can I just say one?
Of course.
One last thing. The reason why I picked East Tampa in particular, you heard the concerns by folks in the community. We've spent the last couple of years getting all the pieces in place to be able to move forward faster, and I share frustration that we haven't been able to move faster, but now we are moving. And I just want to provide some hope that there is some possibility of continuing in case that situation happens. But we have just one thing in terms of federal as well. You all probably know the Justice Department just a day or two after inauguration abruptly ended the Justice Department civil rights investigation about renting while black. And so there's a lot of changes that we're going to be dealing with, but it's our duty to try to protect the community and help the community to grow stronger with the plans that they have for themselves.
Wouldn't you agree that?
Yes, you are
well,
recognized.
I think in that light, I think what we talked about, that Gator building, and we talked about these expenditures, I think the awareness of staff that time is of the essence to do these things. So we need to close these deals. We can't slow rolling things. We've got to move on these projects. So I think that's probably where let's light a fire that time is of the essence. We've got to make these investments. We've got to do those things. And I'm really excited about that, that project and the opportunities with that redevelopment proposal in that area. So hopefully we'll be able to close those deals, and Cedric is going to be able to guide that forward with his incredible staff, and let's get it done. Get it done.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Board Member Carlson, second by Board Member Vieira. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Nay. Okay, motion carries with Henderson and Clendenin voting no. And because I represent all of the CRAs except, one within my district, so I don't want to jump to just say yes to Drew Park. Yeah, it's the reason why I'm saying no. Okay, anything else, Board Member Carlson? All right, thank you. I have a few things. Do I hand the gavel to you?
Forget I'm vice chair of the CRA.
Yes, you are. First of all, Darlene, are you present? Yes, you are, sitting up front. We actually completed our interviews for the CRA director, and we have that information. We want to be very transparent regarding that process, and along with my intern, Miss Alexandria, from the University of South Florida, is going to be assisting with making this information public so that the board can decide how we want to proceed with making either a decision today or bringing in the top 1-2 folks, whatever the case may be. So we will go from there. Darlene will share this information, kind of like how Ms. Shirley does.
Yes.
Thank you, Darlene. State your name for the record, please.
Yes, good morning. Darlene Johnson, Legislative Aide to Chair Henderson, District 5. Just a quick recap, if it's acceptable. During the time frame of February the 13th to March the 6th, each board member had the opportunity to interview the top 4 candidates for the CRA director's position and provide Chair Henderson's office with their top 3 choices. And what we'll do first, I will actually provide the actual choices from each chair member. And I'll start with our first one is from Chair Clendenin. And let's see if we can see it again for public records. The first choice, Cedric McCray. Second, Jennifer Matthews. And the third, Christopher Moore. Our second, Board Member Maniscalco. First choice, Cedric McCray. Second choice, Lisa Nichols. Third choice, Christopher Moore. Board Member Hertex. First choice, Jennifer Matthews. Second choice, Cedric McCray. Third, Christopher Moore. Board Member Carson. First choice, Cedric McCray. Second, Jennifer Matthews. Third, Christopher Moore. Chair Henderson. First choice, Cedric McCray. Second, Jennifer Matthews. Third, Lisa Nichols. And for the record, fourth, Christopher Moore. Chair Member Miranda. First choice, Cedric McCray. Second, Christopher Moore. Third, Jennifer Matthews. And Board Member Vieira. First choice, Cedric McCray. Second, Lisa Nichols. Third, Jennifer Matthews. Fourth, Christopher Moore. It's all 7 board members. And each board member should have a recap of the choices and the following. These are the following rankings. So rank number 1 is Cedric McCray, with 6 board members making him their first choice and 1 board member making him their second choice. Second ranking was Jennifer Matthews, and the third was Christopher Moore. And then there's a recap and overview of all the rankings, or the choices for the CRA director's position that was provided to Chair Henderson's office.
Thank you, Darlene, for that information. Okay, so now that we have this and we've, one of the goals was for us to be very transparent with the community. And so we have done that in recognizing our scores publicly with our signatures. Thank you, Alexandra, my intern, as well as my legislative aide, Darlene Johnson, for providing everyone with that information. How we proceed now is up to us. We can make a decision today, or if we want to bring back applicants, and I'll recognize Board Member Clendenin.
Well, I don't think that that there's any disparity in that the 6 out of 7 ranked our acting director as their #1 choice. So I think in the interest of efficiency, would it be appropriate to make a motion that we direct the chair of the CRA to enter negotiations with Cedric McRae with the city of Tampa, not their chair?
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
We don't just hire this one?
We don't hire them because the HR is the one that has to do
Well,
all the HR work.
I get that, but I mean, but shouldn't she be the liaison between the two since she's the chair of the CRA?
I guess so.
See, I would direct that the chairwoman of the CRA enter negotiations and between acting director Cedric McRae and the city of Tampa HR division to offer Mr. McRae the position of director.
Thank you. We have a motion by Board Member Clendenin, followed by a second by Board Member Maniscalco. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Yes, Board Member Carlson, you're recognized.
Yeah, I just want to say, I've known Cedric for, where is he? I've known Cedric for a long.
He's sly.
My eyes aren't working that great this morning.
He's not one for the limelight.
I've known him for a long time, since he was working with Frank Reddick, and I was sad that he left and happy that he came back. And there's a lot of important building blocks that Erica, in particular, we have to give her a lot of kudos for pushing this forward, but also Elise and Nicole and others who put the building blocks in place. And it's taken a long time to get to this point where we have this strategy. But I think what Cedric has done is the difficulty of this position is negotiating between the city and the CRA, and because they're separate entities but related. And I think he's done a great job of doing that. One of the things that I talked to him about, if he ends up taking this position, is we need to make sure we build a CRA culture where people know that we support them, and that even though they're employees of the city, we because the buck stops with us, we need to make sure there's a positive CRA culture. And I think that he can do that. I think he has a good relationship with the staff. And he's been managing projects. I want to say, Jennifer Matthews, I was incredibly impressed with her, as it sounds like many of you were. She understands the outcomes that we've been talking about. And you all know in graduate school I studied under a professor named William Julius Wilson. I took a class on race and poverty. She took a whole seminar series on that and went deep into all of that stuff. And it was really interesting, exciting to talk to somebody who speak with the same language about that. And I hope that she comes back to the city of Tampa in some capacity. It would be great to have someone who could focus on the issues of poverty in our city. And I think she would be fantastic to do it. She would be great in this position also. And it was really difficult for me to choose between #1 and #2. But Cedric has done a great job. And then I don't know that I spoke to Lisa, but Christopher Moore also is excellent. His background is a lot in development and real estate. And I think right now we need someone who can manage the relationship between city and CRA, manage a positive team, work with the community, and also think about the outcomes that we're trying to reach in the community. The goal is not to build buildings. The goal is to help improve the quality of life of the people in the districts. Thank you.
You're recognized, Board Member Vieira.
Thank you very much. And yeah, I wanted to give kudos to everybody who applied. I thought everybody was wonderful in everything. I just go, there's a saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it's not just not broke, it's working very well. And Mr. McRae, I mean, it's just a stellar public servant, a stellar man, a stellar person. And I just look forward to seeing you in this position continue. I think you're going to do a great job. And Councilman Carlson, William Julius Wilson, that's cool, man. What's that book? When Work Disappears? the male marriageable pool index. I remember that. That's awesome. But yeah, so just kudos.
Okay, yes, I want to thank, as the chair, I appreciate you all being patient with us in this process, and also really giving kudos to all of the applicants. It was wonderful getting to know all of them and their background and experiences. For the record, I would like this to be a roll call vote. We have a motion by Board Member Clendenin, second by Board Member Maniscalco. Roll call, please.
Carlson?
Yes.
Hurtak?
Yes.
Clendenin?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Viera?
Yes.
Miranda?
Yes.
Henderson?
Absolutely,
Motion
yes.
passes unanimously.
Congratulations. Would you like to share a few brief words with us at 11:07? You have until 11:08.
No, thank you. Greatly appreciate your level of support and patience with us as we're, kind of trying to complete building the plan that you all have, and the plan that we've set forth. And I'm looking forward to working with the folks here and then the folks over in T-Mob on the second floor on both sides. Like I said, we're looking to continue to do the good work for the community redevelopment areas. And thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, lastly,
Madam Chair, real quick.
of course, Board Member Clendenin.
Would you please, I don't think it requires a motion, but work with HR, because I know a lot of times these.
Yeah, you made that in your motion.
The applicants that were not successful, to give them timely notification, because I know so many times they do not get information.
Okay. I'll ensure that with, when I address that. Thank you. Okay, so, Attorney Shepherd, are you online?
I am. Do you want me to turn on the camera or just talk?
Yeah, whatever's your preference. I did.
That's okay with me.
You can turn on your camera if you want. I think that is the preference of one of our board members.
I don't think I'd recognize him if he walked down the street.
Yes, Attorney Shepherd, thank you so much. Just a few, and set the clock for 3 minutes, please. The updates coming out of Tallahassee, anything that you want to share regarding CRA legislatively for the public as well as for the board that you want to share with us at this time?
Well, the first thing I'd say is pray. If you like CRAs, this is not a good year. And it explains why every time I'm asked to speak on the subject at FRA and various other places, I explain the importance of staying within the guidelines set by the legislature, because they are literally always looking for a way to end us. Yesterday at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, a new bill was filed, and I didn't think it could get worse. They actually made it a little bit worse, in that they changed what was basically a line in the earlier bill that said that the projects could no longer be introduced after June or July of 2025. And instead, they changed it to the following language. It's very brief, so it won't be much to read. A community redevelopment agency may not initiate any new projects or issue any new debt on or after October 1, 2025. For purposes of this subsection, the term new project means any project for which there is no appropriation in the community redevelopment agency's budget for the fiscal year September 30th, 2025, or for which the community redevelopment agency has not retained appropriated funds under the statute for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2025. So if you haven't already got it in your budget, you'd have to do a budget amendment, and you'd have to get it started before this termination date, which effectively, if this were to pass, it ends CRAs as you know them. Now, I like to offer some hopeful news. I am led to believe by FRA lobbyists and others that there may be an ability to get this portion, which is basically the death sentence, removed from the final bill, and instead end up with a bill that simply says all CRAs must terminate by 2045. And the only exception to that will be with those that have bonds that haven't been paid. It allows the agencies to continue to pay the bonds, but it still would, effectively say that in our future, CRAs will go away. You never know what the future brings, because saying it goes away at a date that far in the future means they could come back and change their minds, but this is not good. And so I would strongly urge you, if you are a fan of CRAs as I am, because you know the good work they do, which I do, to reach out to your legislative delegation, explain to them the good works that happen in CRAs around this state all the time. You can acknowledge, it is a fact, that some CRAs, I know because I have to talk to them all the time, abuse the privilege of CRAs. And that's why we keep running our heads against the wall every legislative session. Literally found out about this on Friday of last week, spent the weekend trying to draft alternative language that might be acceptable to the legislature. But right now, we are just hopeful as much as we can be that this sort of death penalty will be taken off the table, and we're going to see how that goes. But I am led to believe that there is a reasonable chance that this might go away, this portion of it that I just read, but that the overall, end of CRAs is probably going to get through the legislature this session. But again, I've seen bad days come and then all of a sudden disappear. So who knows? There are a lot of fans of CRAs out there, but if you're not a fan and you're the right person in Tallahassee, that may be all that matters. So that's where we are.
Thank you, Attorney Shepherd. Board Member Hurtak.
Thank you, and thank you so much for that update, and I really do appreciate you being honest while also, trying to see light, because I think that's very important just with everything that's going on in the world right now. So I appreciate your honesty, but also your hope. Our CRA we don't have any bonds, do we? We haven't bonded anything. Most of the stuff we pay for in increments.
And over periods of time.
Okay, so that part doesn't impact us, but also, just to clarify, so for the public, we are not bonding any CRA money. Everything we're doing, we're pay-go, we're just slowly rolling. But also, I did want to, my other question, and just to either, is our last CRA ends, or currently ends when?
2043.
2043. So we would stay within those bounds as it is. So I just want the community to know that if we are lucky to get this, we will be within the bounds, and we can still continue, because we have been working very diligently, and that is why one of the reasons we chose Attorney Shepherd, because he is so absolutely up to date with everything the CRAs are doing. And if you attended the CAC meeting, apparently I was told, you scared them good, which is good, because that is really, we have to stay within the bounds and we have to stay within the rules. And I believe our board and our staff has been very good about that. We don't love it, but we're doing it because we're playing within the rules. And so I really just want to say thank you. We're really lucky to be shepherded by some people who know exactly what we need to do. And so I want our community to feel safe and comforted in knowing that our CRAs are doing what they need to do. And I want to thank both Mr. Shepherd and our staff for making sure that is the case. So we are not one of the bad actors.
Okay. Board Member Carlson, followed by Board Member Miranda.
We can talk about this offline, but sometimes substitute language is put in. It changes the nature of a bill, or how it is early on. But if I was doing lobbying or advocacy for FRA, one of the things I would propose is that in place of this is that every CRA district would have to go through a reevaluation to see if it would today qualify as a CRA. That would keep the ones where there's real need alive, but the legislature would get to take their pound of flesh by shutting down the ones like downtown Tampa that shouldn't continue, and so it would bring more money into cities or counties by eliminating the ones that don't really meet the definition anymore. It's just a compromise thing so that they could have a win while still allowing the ones like East Tampa and West Tampa to continue.
Board Member Miranda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the legislature for following the Tampa model. We in before 45 and there's no debt. Thank you.
Yeah. And finally, I think one of the things that I will say is at the very top of, becoming the board chair, our first year in office as a board, we cleaned up a lot of things unanimously within the organization of CRAs, like the Summer Youth Employment Program that doesn't apply to CRAs and Slum and Blight, the I'm having a brain freeze. You know, the special events, you know, activities, things that, you know, do not have anything to do with slum and blight, that we are not gonna be facing that criticism from, you know, the state, because we have cleaned those things up, and so that's really important on our behalf too, of being diligent in that. All right, thank you so much. Can I have a motion to receive and file? Have a motion by so moved by, Maniscalco, a second by Viera. All those in favor? Okay, this meeting is dismissed at 11:17. Well, I thought we was.